did you know that you can route any of the 4 synth tracks on your Analog 4 to their dedicated outputs and that into an effects pedal and then back into the A4's internal mixer? And did you also know that you can use that effects return and use it as an input source for another synth track? So you can apply filters, LFOs, drives, parameter locks, all that stuff? If the answer is no, or I spark your interest in any other way, then let me welcome you to part 2 of your road to Dub Techno with the Elektron Analog Four. So the first idea of this video was just to show you how awesome the A4 sounds when soaked in sounds of different effects pedals, like the Empress ecosystem. While that's a fun thing to do, don't get me wrong, it would just be a sound demo of said effects pedals. I came to the question, how is that helping you to make dub techno on your Analog 4? Now, instead of making this a sound demo, you will learn how to turn your Analog 4 into a solid effects processor slash filter bank, which one of the industry's most versatile and flexible sequences. As an example, we're using the groove from part 1. And you will learn 1, how to bring any audio into the A4's internal mixer, which is great if you want to bring in other instruments into your setup, or as in our case, use it to insert effects pedals into the A4. And 2, how to use the effects returns and bring them in as an input for one of the synth tracks. This is more like a sound design tool because it gives you the opportunity to further shape this effects return with all the sound shaping tools that the Analog 4 has to offer. Alright, so here we are with the Analog 4 and the Empress ecosystem, and this is our initial sequence. So this is a sequence, and as you can hear, we're using the internal effects on the Analog 4, so without them, dry. How do you get this track to the dedicated output, and how you bring all that then back into the Analog 4? It's actually very straightforward. You go on the options, and all the way down here you find audio routing, and on main you can choose which of the 4 audio tracks you want to take out from the main output, so it's no longer been routed to the main. We just hit yes, and if you hit play now, you don't hear anything, because while it is playing, we haven't set the A4 to play back all this. But what you can still do is you can still send the audio to the effects, and because it's a send effect which then goes back to main, you can of course hear what's going on. So how do we fix that? How do we make the Analog 4 listen to the external inputs? By the way, I'm going from the track output number 1, which is a mono cable, into the ecosystem, and from there with a mono pair back into the external inputs. And to be able to listen to the external inputs, you hit effects, where your reverb, delay, chorus and your CV is, but there's also external in, and that's where you can mix in the volume of the inputs. And because it's a stereo pair, you can see you have panning here, which makes sense with a stereo effect. It also means that you need to bring up both inputs at the same volume. By the way, if you're not sure what their volume, the levels or the parameters are, you just hit the page button that you want to see the values of. This works on everything. That's, for example, here on the filter. If you don't know what the values are, just hit filter and it'll show you the values. Really nice feature. Okay, so both inputs set to 80/80, which is fine. We just wanted to keep some headroom here. And now what you hear is our track, and all you have to do is bypass the Empress Echo system. Super nice pedal, by the way, but of course you don't need any fancy pedal really. If you get like a Digitech Obscura or one of those Boss pedals, they're very budget friendly and do the job perfectly. So this is how you get the track audio into the pedal and back into the Analog 4, where you can mix it with all the other elements. And what's also really convenient on this page, you can now route this whole thing back into the effects of the Analog 4 itself. For example, into the delay. If you don't have enough delay going already, you can totally do that. Or the reverb. And of course you can sequence this here. Because you have a really cool sequencer, we can sequence, for example, this as a delay throw. Which comes around every 2 patterns. So I've already set this page here to 32, this track to 32 steps. Really cool. But of course you can keep it always on as well. Very basic. If you just want to use your Analog 4 with an external effects unit, you're all set by now. Let's take it a step further and go into a really deep rabbit hole. Alright, so because you can now take this external input and use it as an audio source for one of your synth tracks. So instead of using an oscillator as the audio source for your synth track, you can use an external input. You can use either the left or the right one. And I'm going to go into a few of the ups and downs on this, or the pros and cons on this in a minute. But what does that mean? It means that you can use your audio input, external audio input, and route it through all the elements that make up the synth track. For example, filters, saturation, an amp page where you can mix it back to your effects on the unit itself, LFOs, filters, and this also means, because, and this is a really cool crazy part, this also means you can use parameter locks, LFOs, all the crazy things, probability. Yeah, let's figure it out. Let's try and make something fun. So let's put down, so let's first of all, okay, let's go to the mixer page and turn this all the way down. So we're not hearing what's coming right through the mixer again, and then go to track 1. And we've set it already to the input, but we're not hearing anything. And of course we're not hearing anything because we're not opening the audio. And you do this by placing tracks. And now it's a bit choppy, and maybe I should show this with just one trick. This means, and the reason why it's just short is because we need to make the trick as long, so the audio is open for as long as we want it to be. And in this case, because we have 16 steps, you should set it at least to 16. But who am I to tell you what you can and should do? You can, of course, do something wild like this, just some random. So it's opening the audio only on these triggers here, and this sounds pretty nice already. Let's send this to relay, delay. Whew. Okay, so I hope you're getting an idea on what this could be and could become. So something, so just an idea, and I think we should keep this running. And now you can of course parameter log. And use filtering, maybe saturate the signal a little bit more. And this is where things get really crazy, and you will know how much I love notch filters for this modulation type. So let's use the second oscillator, the second LFO, and modulate the frequency off. For that instant hypnotic feel. Super crazy. And of course you can set this up with the macros as like just a send effect, because you can, if you bring the volume of this track down, and if you bring down the regular volume of the incoming audio, 50-50 for example, that doesn't sound as cool as I thought it would, but you get the idea of how flexible and how open this. I mean, it's just one synthesizer with a delay, and this could of course be any delay really. It doesn't have to be the Empress ecosystem, as I mentioned already. Maybe let's try something different. I'm also a big fan of bandpass filters, but let's try to do it like so. Open this up. You can of course set it to infinite as well, but I think that's a bit lazy. So now it's open all the time, because you can of course just p-lock . You can of course just p-lock filter values, and you can of course make this a different time signature, and you can send this back into the delay, or maybe just have this. Sounds cool. And you can create really complex rhythmic patterns. And I'm pretty sure you can. I'm not going to try it right now. This is maybe a topic for a different video. And let me know in the comments below if that's something that you want to dive deeper on. If you want to go on the exploration with me. If we can stack this even more, well, I mean, because I could route this track to its own dedicated output. And because, exactly, that's something that I want to mention here real quick. And you could route that to the other external input. As I mentioned earlier, because these synth tracks are mono, you can you can route the other channel in as well, but that doesn't make this track go or become, this doesn't make this track stereo. So if you have a stereo effect, and I will show you, let me show you this real quick. Let's set everything here to... Okay, so what I want to show you is if you have two monos, if you don't have two, if you have one mono signal coming in, and because the track is mono, it will get folded into one. And when you fold stereo to mono, if it's not in perfect, so usually you have phase variations on the left and the right channel, so you will get a fading effect, which you can hear very clearly here. But this actually sounds really, really cool from a sound design perspective. However, this might not be the desired effect, one, and secondly, if you're wondering if you can still keep this mono, that's not going to work. That's not how the routing, how the architecture of the A4 is set up. So that's just a heads up. If you want to use it as a stereo effects processor and you want to use the different tracks, you have to put the other channel on the other track and have then use the panning to bring one track to the left and one track to the right. So it's kind of a downside, but that's just how it is. However, I really like what I heard here. And now we can go into the LFO thing. All right, so the point that I was actually making is I'm pretty sure that you can now route track 2 to its individual output and from there into a different effect like this one, and use that as the audio source for track 3. So you can basically stack those effects. That would basically turn the Analog 4 in an extremely flexible filter bank. Really cool stuff. Liking it already. So what do you say we find a few more nice sounding sequences? One thing that I really like is this stepping thing that plays a few couple tricks. So, really cool. So what happens is, this is an LFO. I'm not sure if that's really a trick, but so if you have the parameter, the way the LFO is synced, you can have it free running, so it's just doing a thing, and you can have it sync up on just individual tracks. You can set it to trick, which means that every time it comes to a trigger, it will restart its phase, and you can also set it to hold. So that means every time it comes to a trick, it will go a little bit further on its way, and with the speed you set how fast it will step, so how big the steps are, and this creates this almost sample and hold like effect, but which is a lot more predictable. This sounds cool already. Let's send this to the delay. man. Okay, so yeah, that's the rabbit hole that I was talking about. So easy to zone out and start jamming and having fun and changing things around. That's basically the video for today. So we could, of course, extend this whole video now by showing you pretty much the same thing, but with different effects and the octatrack and maybe the syntact. But yeah, the point that I want to make and the thing that I wanted to show you is that you can, if you have this machine, can go very far on the sound design thing and make really interesting and unique sequences, bring in new textures and rhythms and patterns and all that. And if you take the time and maybe make a couple drums on this machine, sample it into your DAW or into another sampler that you have, then start to create those sequences and start to build onto them. I know it's always easier if you have 20 instruments lying around and you can work on everything at the same time, but it's also a lot of fun to use just one instrument. And this brings me to a question I have for you, because what is it that you want to see next? What is it that you want to see or what you want to learn with the Analog Four in the soft light of the dub techno genre that we could shine on here? So let me know in the comments below. I do have a few ideas on what I could show you in the following videos. Who knows what's coming? I'm certainly not sure what will, but yeah, let me know what you would like to see, because that's making those videos for you. And if you have questions, if you have ideas, if you want to dive deep into anything particular, let me know in the comments below. And of course, if you like this video, make sure to follow and subscribe. Remember the free demo preset pack for the Analog Four, Dub Techno themed. And remember that there is a big pack coming with plenty of material to explore for you and make patterns with. So thank you again for tuning in. See you next time.